Okay. So, I want to talk about confidence, okay? On Monday, we talked briefly about confidence, right? And the thing is, when we start to teach anything, we have to start with the definition of what it is so you understand what it is. Otherwise, we're all going to have different interpretations of what the definition of that thing is, your own personal definition. And unfortunately, if you have that, you've got a slippery slope, right? So the definition of confidence is a feeling of self-assurance arising from an appreciation of one's own skills, abilities, and or qualities, okay? Right, now when you're training, okay, one of the things I want you to realize is confidence is not a state, okay? Confidence is something that you develop through experience. It's not a light switch you can just switch on and off, right? And as a consequence, to develop your confidence through experience, you have to practice perfectly. There's going to be perspiration, and you have to perpetuate that cycle of teaching, right? So that you embed that learning. And what tends to happen as a consequence of that is you go through what we call the 4 stages of learning, okay? So the first stage of learning is what you call unconscious incompetence. Is when you don't know you're not good at something. So you're completely oblivious to it, all right? The second stage of learning is you become aware that you're not good at something. That's conscious incompetence. So you now know consciously that you're not good at a thing. And then you move on to stage 3, which is, hopefully you move on to stage 3, is you are compelled to get good at a thing. So you start to work on it, you start to cultivate that technique, that movement, that skill, that ability, that quality, that attribute in yourself, whatever it might be, okay? And what starts to happen is you start to become aware that you're getting good at it, slowly. And then what happens is you start to become consciously competent. That's the third stage, okay? But when you keep doing that, and then you kind of like get to a point where like, oh yeah, I'm good at this, you forget about it. And when you forget about it, you go into the 4th stage, which is unconscious competence. So it's like riding a bike, okay? When you first learn to ride a bike, you're mechanical, it's very robotic, you're trying to figure out how to hold the handlebars, how to get onto the bike, whether you sit on the seat or you stand first, and then how to sit on the seat, kind of find your balance while you're stationary. And then trying to figure out, how do you put your feet on the pedals? How do you pedal and start to propel yourself? Hopefully somebody's taught you how to brake before you start. Otherwise, there's an accident waiting to happen. And you get the idea, how to steer and then eventually brake safely. But during that process, it's going to be very mechanical, all right? You're still trying to find that balance point. And it's usually when somebody's teaching you, let's just say if you were learning as a kid, a parent or a guardian is holding the seat, and you're just riding along, and somewhere along the line, you don't realize, but they've let go. You found the balance point, and the guardian or the parent knows that you've found it, and you're just doing your own thing until you realize, whoa, and then you may panic, crash or fall down, or you may just glide beautifully and then come to a graceful stop. 6 months down the line, with repetition, perfect practice makes perfect, you're riding perfectly, you're not thinking about riding anymore. You're just thinking about, where am I going to go? I'm going to go knock for my mates, I'm going to go have fun, I'm going to go see this place, I want to go to this shop, buy some sweets on my bike, whatever it might be, yeah? So you're more excited about the journey, where you're going, who you're meeting, the laughs you're going to have on the way, and so on, okay? So it becomes unconscious competence. So we want to get into that stage, okay? So with martial artistry, it's the same thing. But you get into a state of knowing, right? You know how the technique works, but you're not thinking about it anymore, right? You know how to use that technique with efficiency, with effectiveness, with efficiency, okay? It's there when you need it, okay? And on top of that, you're not even thinking about it when it's happening. Then there's another thing that happens is you not only know what to do, but most importantly of all, you know when to use it, and even more important than that, when not to use it. Okay, so you can hold yourself back. That's absolute control. Okay, so when you know you're a weapon, then you have to utilize your self and carry yourself carefully. Okay, whether it's your thoughts that translate to words, that translates to actions, right? So you have to be mindful of that. So one of the daily life examples where we lack confidence is when we experience imposter syndrome, right? Put your hands up if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome, you don't know what imposter syndrome is, I'll explain. Imposter syndrome is when you, let's just say you start a new job, or you meet a new partner, or you become a parent. All of a sudden, there's things that you don't know about those roles and responsibilities that you've just taken on. So there's a bit of a fear, right? And that fear dents your confidence. So in fact, there's an absence of confidence, right? Because you're in a state of fear. But when you start to do that thing, start to get into it, start to get the training, start to seek knowledge, and start to gain the experience, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the line, depending on what application it is, what happens to that imposter syndrome? Yeah? Right? Fizzles away, right? Just evaporates, right? But what replaces that? Exactly, confidence. Confidence is the antidote to imposter syndrome through experience, all right? And that's a big takeaway for you guys. And as part of that takeaway, we're going to bring it back to martial arts. In martial arts, there's a teaching, a really powerful teaching. And this teaching is something that we call the 1,000, 10,000 rule, okay? And it's just a rule of thumb. And you know, rule of thumbs are not absolute. Some people are quicker, some people are slower at learning. But the 1,000, 10,000 rule is a guideline or a rule of thumb that says to learn a technique, you need to practice it 1,000 times. To make sure you got that technique unconsciously, so it's there, you don't have to think about it, it just happens, you got to practice it 10,000 times. So at the beginning of class, we were having a conversation with some of the students out in the waiting area, and the conversation was around a scene in Enter the Dragon, where this is one of the scenes that were later introduced into the limited edition versions of Enter the Dragon, because it wasn't in the original cut. And it's a scene where the Shaolin abbot is talking to Bruce, who's a Shaolin monk and martial arts master, and he asks him, the Shaolin abbot asks him, what is the highest technique? And Bruce responds, to have no technique, okay? And what he's talking about is being in the state of unconscious competence. You no longer thinking about doing a technique when you need to do the technique, it just happens. So there's another quote that Bruce talked about is, I do not hit, it hits all by itself, okay? And that is what that's talking about. And you notice that breeds confidence. And I want to share that with you, okay?